What's up YouTube, Demi here with another build guide, showcase, whatever for TasteTheLemon. This is my cast on crit discharge character, Cospri's Discharge specifically. I'll just grab a random strand that doesn't have temp chains on it so you can see the playstyle. But this was my first delving into the character build playstyle, whatever you want to call it, that is cast on crit discharge. I didn't have a chance to play it back when it was actual cast on crit discharge instead of Cospri's. I didn't have access to the currency that was required to make the build, since Falls Devotion was 30x and 6-link Walls Protector was 10x, and there's a bunch of really expensive pieces that you needed, right? But nowadays, with Cospri's being in the game, Cospri's is less than an Exalt. I think in League it's maybe 20 chaos, and Vol's Devotion in League as well is less than an X. In Standard, I believe Vols are 1 to 3x depending on the corruption, because most of them are from the corrupted div cards. And 6-link Vols Protector, or even a 5-link Vols Protector for that matter, is very cheap as well, less than a couple X. So, making this build is usually, back before it was ridiculously expensive. It was 30 to 50x to even get the starting core items, but now you can do it with nothing. Just a couple X. So, if you want to go fast and discharge like crazy, and finally get the experience cast on crit discharge, which is no longer gated behind such a ridiculous price wall, you can do so. And you can achieve extremely fast map clear speed, which it's not really good for single target anymore because of the changes to the cooldowns on cast on crit gems and stuff like that, but it's very, very good at map clearing, and very relatively budget to get put together to be able to do strands and stuff like this. Primordial Pool or whatever map you want to do, Mesa. So there's your single target example. So we're just going to go over some of the gear. As I said before, the required uniques are Cospri's Malice, so you can discharge with your shield charge whenever you crit on you cast a socketed cold spell on melee crit. So I have discharge in my actual weapon, so that every time I crit with my shield charge, I get to cast discharge, which is great. And then for your actual single target skill, you have a 6-link or 5-link Cyclone in your chest piece, which you'll have Cyclone linked to cast on crit, linked to discharge, linked to some other stuff, whatever you want. I've also discovered that I don't need to have Vol's Devotion to be able to do maps. I've been experimenting with Bisco's Collar, which usually lets me put it on, but because I have this node right here instead of a strength node, I can't. But you can do the same thing with a Bisco's. So I'll go ahead and show that real quick. We'll do a map with the exact same everything except for using a different amulet. This is without Vols, which means I lose all of my endurance charge generation, which you would think drops my damage fairly at high amounts, which it does, because you don't have 6 endurance charges to discharge with. But you still one-shot most packs. You just deal slightly less damage. But usually it's fine. We'll just do a quick run here. But yeah, I've been experimenting with it. It's got a lot of possibilities for gear. You have basically every slot available for you to get whatever you want on it. You can get a Hysteria Penetration Belt for more damage. You can get a +1 Endurance Charge Belt. If you really wanted to shell out some money, you could try to find a +1 Endurance Charge Hysteria Penetration Belt, which would be cool. I'm thinking about trying to do that, but Hysteria Belts are incredibly expensive to craft in Standard right now. They're it's like an Exalt per Hysteria essence. And I don't really want to vol anything that might be sellable for more than that, so I don't know, it's a weird place. But that means that with your gear, you have your helm slot, your glove slot, your boot slot, your belt slot, and amulet rings available for whatever. There is one catch to your rings. You do want to achieve, let me take off my rings. Say these are both L-round diamond rings. If I take them both off, I have an 11 mana cost shield charge, which is manageable without L-round rings, but if you don't have the boot enchantment for leech, it's kind of hard to sustain your shield charge. So you're going to want to get at least -11 total across both of your rings so that your shield charge is free. And then while you're cycloning for boss fights or whatever, you'll pretty much always have Vingtars up, so it's not a big deal. But as you see, the damage is fine, even without endurance charges. And I have 6 endurances, so my endurances are actually pretty pretty good amounts of fire damage added to my discharge. And there you can see the single target effect, it's pretty bad in comparison. But I guess that was 69% more monster life, so maybe it wasn't the exact same thing. But yeah, so I'll go quick mouse over all my gear, talk about it as we go. Cospri's Malice, as I said, Vault's Protector. Helm, you want ES stats. Inked is nice for extra ES, accuracy is nice as well if you can get it. Shield, you want to get spell crit and spell damage if possible. This is very expensive otherwise, but other than that you just go for ES, and if you can get intelligence, that's great. Rings, as I've said, you need a total of -8, or sorry, -11, but you don't have to have diamonds, they can be any type of Elround ring. If you need resistances, grab a resistance ring, and just like craft ES on them, generally is all you need to do. If you need a little bit of extra res, or if you want to craft int for even more extra res, you're more than welcome to. Gloves, these are my mirror tier gloves, these are my mirror thread, they are 5T1s plus craft. I'm eternal exalting them for % ES, but these more attack and cast speed insanity gloves, these let you shield charge even faster, so I have a 4-link shield charge in here. But stats on gloves that you would like, attack speed's good, dex is good. We do need a huge chunk of dex to be able to actually equip Cospri Malice. This is the only dex item that I have because it's tier 1 dex perfectly rolled, it's enough to allow me to equip it with my tree. But the insanity means you go really, really fast. And then just get resist, stats, accuracy, attack speed, whatever. Belt, if you want endurance charge belt, go for it. I needed strength off my belt, so I got strength, ES, resists, endurance charge. You don't need the endurance charge, it just helps. If you want more of the ES, you can just get a crystal belt, or you can craft like a hysteria penetration crystal belt. With strength would be great. Boots, death doors give you an additional endurance charge and strength, which we need desperately, along with a fair amount of resistance. But if you don't have access to something like this, these are fairly expensive. I think they're 2 to 3x base, or maybe 5x in standard, and the enchant adds more. You can just grab some nice boots with resist stats, move speed. You don't actually need move speed, but it helps. It means your shield charge goes faster. And also, the fact that these give you immunity to bleeding frees up a utility slot on your flasks. So because I'm immune to bleed, I don't have a bleed flask. I guess I should talk about Vault's Devotion as well. This gives you free endurance charge generation whenever you discharge with power charges, so that's good. But if I didn't have death doors, I would just put bleed immunity on my onslaught flask. So this setup is primarily for speed clearing maps. Diamond flask, shock immunity to counteract Vingtars. Quicksilver with freeze immunity to go Fapst. Onslaught with reduced charges used, so we have 2 uses along with move speed, so we go even faster. You can put the movement speed roll on your Quicksilver obviously, and then put the freeze here if you want, it doesn't matter. And then I have Dying Sun for more AoE. The AoE helps a lot more for your shield charge than it actually does for your discharge from what I've seen. It like helps you feel like you don't need to shield charge into actual enemies, you just have to shield charge near them to crit and discharge, which is great. Links. In my Cospris, I'm using Discharge, Controlled Destruction. You can have whatever else you want in this last link. I'm using item quantity to farm, but you could use increased crit multi, increased AoE, elemental focus, whatever you want. Any other damage spell is fine. I just threw this in because I don't feel like I need any more damage, and the AoE feels more or less the same without AoE in the link. 6-link setup, I'm using Cyclone, Cast on Crit, Discharge with increased crits, and then your last 2 links are kind of up to you. I put in additional, oops, sorry, I just punched my mic. I put in additional accuracy to make sure that I have above 90% crit chance, but you don't need that. Puts me at 88%. It's not that big of a deal. It's a huge chunk of flat accuracy though. And then my last link, again, item quantity. You could put Life Leech in this setup, you could put increased crit multi, controlled destruction, whatever you want for damage here. But these 2 links are more or less up to you. I have enough accuracy from this that it pushes me way over 90, which is great. And then my shield charge has around 88%, which is enough. Other links. Gloves, set up your movement skill, shield charge, fortify, faster attacks, and increased crits. Remember that with Cospris, your shield charge actually does need to crit to be able to cast the discharge in your Malice, so make sure you have crits in there. If you don't have Legacy Insanities and you're struggling with critical strike chance, you can use the Socketed Gems have 0.35% critical strike chance thing, which I believe is one of these. I'm not sure which one it is. Yeah, I think it's Delirium. I don't know. It's one of the upgraded ones though, but that gives your shield charge an additional 3.5% base crit, which means that it's more or less 100% crit chance guaranteed with increased crits as well. Other links, I have Cast on Damage Taken, Immortal Call with Ice Golem. because we have endurance charge generation from Vol's Devotion, we have 6 endurances. This lasts like 6 seconds, which is just stupid. Random portal gem. Castle damage taken, Warlord's Mark. This helps you sustain mana against bosses, and if you hit a reflect pack, it gives you an additional 2% leech against that reflect pack for the next hit. And then I have a green link for Blood Rage. You don't need this, it just means that you go faster. I felt that this was more reliable than the Vol Haste setup, since I had to keep stopping my shield charge to cast Vol Haste to have the buff up for a couple seconds. This is just like up the entire map. It gives you a huge chunk of attack speed and frenzy charges on kill, and frenzy charges mean that we have more attack and cast speed and more damage because they discharge with our other discharges, so it's like additional damage is great. And then I have my aura set up here, Enlighten, Purity of Fire, Purity of Lightning, and Discipline. Purity of Fire, Purity and Lightning pushes your max res up so that you don't discharge and kill yourself to reflect. With flasks, I'm using Dying Sun and Vingtars, so that's fire and lightning. Our discharge is primarily fire and lightning, so we're kind of like reflect safe, proof, whatever you want to call it. If I had level 21s, I would have 80%, and then I would have 87% with my 2 flasks up, which is pretty huge defensively for reflect. That's the main danger to this build, is volatiles and reflect. But if reflect were safe against volatiles, you just have to get more ES to get. Best in slot enchants. Helmet enchant, single target DPS is 30% chance for discharge not to consume charges. This allows you to more or less randomly stay at full discharge charges, whatever. So I would stay at 7 power charges, 6 endurances, 3 frenzies occasionally, which means that your discharges hit really hard repeatedly. If you can't afford this one, because it is fairly expensive, the discharge damage helmet enchant's good, or the discharge AoE is good as well, obviously. Boot enchant, you want the leech, so you can sustain without flasks up during maps. Just keeps you at full health, which is great. Glove enchants are kind of up to you. I went for Of Winter. It's a projectile that pulses with cold as it travels. So imagine a cold ball lightning, basically. Yeah, I'll show you in Dried Lake real quick. You more or less, if you get touched, it throws this ball out. This isn't Dried Lake, but whatever. You just get to some enemies. It'll throw a ball out, and it's a projectile skill. So if you have Dying Sun active and something tags you, throws out 3 of them, and they can shotgun, and they do a fair amount of damage because you're using Warlord's Mark as well. Come on, trigger. There you go. That's what it does. If you have Dying Sun out, it gets 3 of them, and it hits really hard and has a really high crit strike chance. I have 7 power charges, and it's got 85% crit. The Diamond Flask, it's more or less crit capped, so it's pretty good. But that's a spell AoE cold thing, so like it's nice. Other options, you could get cast Command of Inferno on kill, Command of Flames on hit. There's a bunch of different defensive and offensive enchants. I prefer this one personally. I think it's the best. Yeah, I think that's everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There's more good build guides on my channel. I will link the original guide that I based this character off of in the description of the video as well. I've kind of made a lot of my own changes, so I figured it was about time for me to make my own guide on it. Oh, right, jewels, shit. Jewels, you have a bunch of jewel sockets. Mods that you want are like attack speed with one-handed swords, whatever, so you go faster. And then for damage stats, you want like spell damage, crit multi with any of the elemental skills, global crit multi, area damage, increased damage. You more or less just want to go fast, though. The more attack speed you have, the faster you can clear maps, and then the more like damage things you have on your jewelry, on your jewels, the better your single target is. So you have to like find the balance between those two things. Yeah. Oh yeah, you have 1 intuitive leap, so you can pick up 1, 2, 3 points here without having to take all of these travel nodes. Saves you a bunch of extra points and gives you an extra endurance charge, power charge, and ES node. But yeah, the skill tree is pretty simple. You just pick up area, flask, ES, power charges, spell crit, and then area, accuracy, movement speed, elemental damage, power charges, ES. Elemental equilibrium, because Cospri is only cold damage with attacks. You always deal cold damage, so then you discharge with fire and lightning with your endurance power charge, so you deal 50%, or I guess they have negative 50% fire and lightning resist, which is a huge chunk of initial damage. But yeah, you have a lot of freedom on the tree. You don't need these accuracy nodes. I just wanted them to guarantee my crits. Then you pick up spell crits, CI obviously, and Ghost Reavers you can leech. Crit multi, spell damage, ES, attack speed, Fall packs you can leech instantly if you have Legacy Vingtars, which I actually do. You don't need this node, so I could probably just refund that. But I haven't done that yet for some reason. But yeah, if you don't have Legacy Vingtars, you need this, so make sure you get that, pick that up if you don't have it. Yeah, I think that's it. This character's really fun, very fast. You can push the ES a lot higher than 8k. I don't have like insanely perfect Elrond rings or an insane shield really, and if I was wearing ES boots instead of Death Doors, they would probably be even higher. But yeah, it's very fun. I'm enjoying it. It's level 96, almost 97. I just do strands with it when I'm bored. And that'll be Demi out. I'll see you guys in the next guide.